Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Freestyle Chess. This is a new type of chess event where all of the players are playing Fischer random chess, a type of chess where the back row of pieces is shuffled, randomly selected about 15 minutes before game time, and then the players just go and have at it. We have Magnus Carlsen taking on Alireza Firouzja in the first round of the quarterfinals. It is now a knockout. We have Ding Liren versus Nodirbek Abdusattorov. We have Vincent Keymer from Germany, the hometown hero, taking on Caruana-Aronian, and we have Fabiano Caruana going up against Gukesh from India. It's very exciting stuff. They are playing classical chess now, 90-minute chess for this, and it's a very fascinating format because there are no openings. So this is the setup that was randomly selected before the quarterfinals begin. Today they play like this, and tomorrow they flip colors. So they got to invent opening theory basically on the spot. Nodirbek Abdusattorov is the #1 seed. He went undefeated in the preliminary stage. Then, of course, I will show you the game of Magnus. I will show you the game of Levon. And all the players who play black and all the players who play white do have the option to discuss among themselves prior to the game beginning. So that way they don't interfere with one another. And remember, the positions are randomly generated every round, so you're not really giving away any specific preparation. So Nodirbek plays e4, and these are two players on vastly different wavelengths. Nodirbek 5.5 out of 7 in the preliminary stage. Ding had half. And he had no points after 6 rounds. But this is classical now. This is 90-minute chess. This is not 25-minute chess. And Ding plays b5, opting to bring out his bishop. If white wants to castle, he needs to play knight to f3, and he needs to castle like this. If he wants to castle the other way, he's got to move these 3 pieces out of the way, and then he will land his king and rook like this. We have b4, though. So we have both players moving out their b-pawns. And the good thing about this is that I will have the exact same setup in every game. And that way we will look at the intricate details of the position. So now, e5 is a good move probably to fight back for the center. Ding plays knight f6. All right, so you see that the players, they spent 5 minutes on the first move. They're thinking from move 1, which is really interesting. And Ding plays knight f6. Nodirbek plays d3. There are already many setups, but you will notice actually that it's equal. But the computer wants e5 and knight h6. Stockfish thinks putting the knight here will be good in the long run. Ding puts it in the center, which under traditional chess principles might be right, but Nodirbek puts his knight like this. And that's very interesting. And I think the point is that this type of setup really wants the f-pawn to be mobile. The knight goes here, the center is strong, and then you get the f-pawn going with the bishop. And the point is that the side to commit the king first might turn, basically give a big tell, like in poker, to the opponent. Like, if I bring my king, you're going to attack me. Well, Ding doesn't wait. He strikes in the center right away. So Ding is taking a center-based approach. We have pawn takes, knight takes, but now the pawn here is hanging. But if Ding hadn't played d5, if he had played, for example, castles, Nodirbek would have went f4, and then he would have had a direct line of assault on the black king. And you see the advantage already very big for white, which is very interesting. Not to mention, white can also castle and have a rook active in the attack. So d5, and Ding gives up a pawn. He just straight up, he plays this in the style of the Marshall. And if you don't know what the Marshall is this. We have a regular chess setup. We play a Spanish opening with knight c6, bishop b5, a6. I know I'm going deep in the tank here a little bit, by trying to show you this kind of normal preparation. But the point is basically like b5, bishop b3, castle c3, and black plays d5 and loses the pawn in the center. And in the Marshall, which is an opening that Ding plays, black is down a pawn but gets very active counterplay. But that's not interesting to us right now. What is interesting to us right now is that Ding lost the same pawn in the center. Will he get that Marshall-style counterplay? So Ding is applying some concepts that he knows from regular chess to get Marshall-style compensation and say, look, I'm a pawn down, but your extra pawn is right here, and it's not going to be felt. Yeah, but think about, the fact that Nodirbek is up a full pawn on the 6th move. Now, here's something interesting. The players have something at this event called a confessional booth. So mid-game, to provide content for the audience, they can go into a booth and they can say their thoughts. And Ding said he made a big mistake on the second move. Can you imagine a top-level chess player in regular chess making a mistake in a second move? No, but in this type of format, it's very common. And Ding says, you know what, I gotta bail out and I gotta play this position. So Nojibek plays bishop to f3, right? Rook e8, I don't... 1 second. I'm messaging my one of my editors mid recap. And the thing is, if I don't send a message right now, nothing will happen. It's tough. So I got to send a message now. If you'll excuse me, I'm going to take about 10 seconds. Anyway. There we go. And now I will go back to talking to you about Nojibek versus Ding Liren. Bishop d4, bishop e7. Nojibek takes, which is a interesting decision. He could just play a3, but Nojibek decides, I want to get rid of the knight. He spends 11 minutes making that decision. And I think his point is like, look, we need a little bit of imbalance. We need bishop, bishop, knight versus knight, knight, bishop. And I'm not going to send the game into opposite-colored bishops unless I have to. Think about what we know about chess. Opposite-colored bishop endgames are very, very frequently drawish. Now, Ding, to his credit, does have a lot of compensation here. A lot of active play. The bishop is out, and, you know, it's kind of tough for white to get anything going. And then this happens. And we see ourselves inching closer and closer to an endgame, which is traditionally a draw. However, what's very important in this particular case of this endgame is that it was born out of a unique type of structure, right? It was born out of chess 960. So white has a pawn. That's a very different type of imbalance. And white has attacking chances. All right, we have a3. Now Ding tries to get rid of his weakness. Nojibek takes and plays rook e3 and basically says, all right, let's trade. Ding says no. Nojibek plays h5 and f3. He has 5 out of 6 pawns, negating the effect of this bishop. Ding is solid. Can Nojibek break through against Ding? He just starts moving forward. Ding, very accurate move. f5, splitting up the pawns. If you take with white, you break everything apart. So I play rook f4, you can't defend everything, and it's probably going to be a draw. That's why Nojibek goes here. A very well-timed pawn strike. Yes, black can capture, but then Nojibek will go here, and yes, black can capture this as well, but then this, and black is getting mated. So out of nowhere, remember, opposite-colored bishop is a drawn endgame, but it benefits the attacking party. So suddenly, Ding is on the back foot. Now Nojibek takes, and he finds f6, a very important counter pawn sacrifice. Both guys sacrificing pawns to try to damage each other's structure. Pawn takes d3, and even though this is classical chess, I mean, this is classical chess. I mean, this is a real, like, 35 minutes on the clock. Even though it's Fischer random, c4 and all this, and Ding does not find the right idea, does not find the right drawing mechanism, and all of a sudden is just completely busted. Bishop d5 played, he's trying to defend. Nojibek regroups, wins the pawn, but look at his pawn. Look at the powerful pawn that he has. Rook e7, rook d7, and rook takes, rook g7, and that's it. That's the game right there. That's the game. He wins a piece, he trades, and it's a completely winning endgame. White can't actually, black can't actually get over here in time because the pawn just runs up the board. And if you push, it's a draw. You push, it's a draw. But you don't push. You go here. Black can't get closer. So black is going to run out of pawn moves. And then black is going to lose the game. Look, c5, king d3. h5, king c4. h4, bishop f4. h3, bishop h2. Black has to move this way, and the pawn promotes. Isn't that fascinating? You don't push the pawn. Because if the king gets to the corner, it's the wrong color corner. It's a draw. It's fascinating, right? But Nojibek wins. Ding Liren is now half out of 8. Now, admittedly, it's Fischer random, right? So maybe in Fischer random, it's just a matter of like, he made a big mistake on the second move. It's not the first mistake you're going to see on the second move today. But oh my God, he's half out of 8. And tomorrow he has to win. He has to win. They're going to play tomorrow, the second game. That's crazy. Now, Fabiano versus Gukesh. This one a little bit different. This one's c4. But, all right, the difference being in this game, right? Like, look at the opening. White plays e4, b4. In this game, he plays c4, b4. All right, interesting. Knight f6, very different story, because there, none of this is happening, right? Knight f3, and now we see Fabiano advancing on the queen side. So he chooses this setup where he advances a bit and he takes away Gukesh's space. And now they have a very different structure. They have a structure where they've both castled, and it's clear that white is going to play for a d4 approach, like this, right? And there is an opening in chess in the King's Indian where black puts this pawn on e4 and starts attacking. But it's not regular chess, because the pieces are all over the place. So Gukesh plays it like this, and it's just a very tense position. I mean, both guys' pawns are clashing, very unclear what's going to happen. There is a chance Fabiano's going to have to move this f-pawn, because if not, you know, black could overwhelm you over here. He has a massive space advantage. So now, knight e2, knight g3, big maneuvering going on, takes. Gukesh starts relieving the pressure, but structurally, this is very ugly. If we go to an endgame and white gets a rook to pressure, black is going to have a headache. And it's not going to be because of the rain over in Germany. It's going to be because of the position. Queen e6, bishop d5. But Gukesh starts, you know, bringing some pieces forward. And now Fabi does, in fact, move his f-pawn. All right, he moves his f-pawn. And a big moment for Gukesh. If Gukesh plays en passant, which makes sense, white will sneak in e4. And if black backs up, white just has a great position. A little bit, you know, a little bit loose, but he's going to try to advance, right? So he plays f4. Gukesh doesn't take. And black is better. Black is better because white's bishop is pretty bad. Like, white's bishop is pretty bad. Fabi starts rerouting to the queen side because he has to. He has to improve the situation on the queen side if he's going to do anything in the position. Queen to back to e6. Now he's very smart. It's a very, very genius idea that Fabiano comes up with here. It's very instructive. And it's worth noting that maybe black should have not left the center. Like, maybe black should have made a few more preparatory moves, got the rook more into the game. He tries to leave the center, and if white just goes here, he's going to put a knight here, and Fabi will lose. He will lock down the center. None of Fabiano's pieces are ever going to get into the game. This bishop is just going to live 100 years of solitude over here on a1, and it's going to be really bad. So Fabiano here unclogs his arteries a little bit, takes a deep breath of fresh air, like you're sitting in the back of a hot taxi, you open the window, and you don't even ask permission because, you know, you're the passenger and the customer's always right. d5. That is called a clearance sacrifice. So he is clearing the squares and just exhaling. Even though Gukesh is able to take, now like a switch is flipped. Knight d4, queen g3, knight c6, like an avalanche. Boing, 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 boing. Like, for a cost of one stupid pawn. What a position Fabiano has now. And suddenly all the momentum has flipped. And Gukesh is sitting there going, why did I play queen e6? Like, I knew he could have played d5, but to Gukesh's point, he's probably like, well, I'm a pawn up. I mean, a pawn counts for a lot. A pawn is a pawn even in Germany. So queen g3, knight c6, knight c4. But Fabiano just, he's regrouping, and, you know, he's going to put something on e5, he's going to play f5, and we're going to get into a time trouble. Queen f5, bishop e5, both guys around 10 minutes, 6 minutes now. Gukesh spends a lot of time. Remember a while ago I told you that this pawn is really weak? It's because it is. I didn't lie to you, right? Queen g6, he's trying to trade. Fabi says, no queen trade. Knight back to d4. Oh my goodness. And suddenly, these pieces are playing Twister. You ever play that game? You put the mat down, you all try to like touch the colors and stuff. What is happening? I mean, it's a huge cluster, you know what, of pieces. Gukesh tries to get rid of the pressure with 4 minutes on the clock. And Fabi's gonna win material. Like, Gukesh should have played king g8. He goes here. Fabi just takes the knight. Gukesh takes. But now queen a2. And this queen is stranded. It can't get back to help anybody. Rook d7. Oh my god. Queen h5. And I told you a long time ago that pawn will fall. And I'm forecasting what's going to happen, because here Gukesh has the option to create counterplay with this rook or this rook, and he chooses this rook. And Fabi just defends himself. It doesn't matter if you can check my king with queen h4. I just go here. This is falling. If you go back, oops. f6 played, queen a3 check, queen b3. And in this position, Gukesh resigns because there is nobody who can protect the rook. If you play knight c7, I take it. If you play queen f5, I play g4. And out of nowhere, out of a position where basically everything was locked down, Gukesh gives Fabiano a chance. One pawn move. How instructive is that? One pawn move. And White's position came alive. And suddenly, despite being that pawn down, and yeah, Black still has an advantage according to the engine in this position. I mean, but it's like, I don't know, it's symbolic. There's nothing really, I mean, it's a very difficult position. Probably Gukesh should have played a6. I mean, he should have probably fought back with that pawn and then put his queen here. b7, not a7, sorry. If this knight moves, he would go to a7. But he didn't, and he loses, and Fabiano wins. What a comeback. I mean, it was hardly a comeback. It was just a complicated game. This game was also nuts. All right, this game was also nuts. This is c4, c5, b4. Okay, so this is like, we have this opening in this game, we have this opening in game one, and we have this opening, right? It's just so interesting to see which direction all these players go. Takes. The rook comes out. What? Why is the rook out? Now Levon plays bishop a5. Activates his bishop, activates his knight. Vincent plays c5. Vincent has nothing developed. Knight e4 is threatening to put... Look at this! Like, you could lose. Knight e4, knight b3 guards everything. And now it's like, what is Levon doing, bro? Well, he's inching closer. And a3 is a double pawn sack. Like, he wants him to take this so that then he can push the knight out and play... What the What? These openings don't make any sense. And you'll notice, like, the guys have spent 40 minutes on the 7th move, which is what makes this so interesting, that they have to think like this, right? Bishop c5, right? Knight c5. Knight c5. d4. So Vincent says, you know what? You can have the pawn. But what I'm going to get is I'm going to get active lines for the pieces that want the active lines. And the extra pawn is here, which we've seen in the Gukesh game. The extra pawn on that side of the board, as he had it, right? The extra pawn, it's not really, you're not going to feel it. So d4, e4, e5. Look at this. He's just taking a bunch of space away. What a complicated game this is. Knight h3. Now, this type of structure, you see how every game they play overlaps with something else? That type of structure is from an advanced French. Just like in the Ding game, right? This is an advanced French structure. Look. Oops. Take. This structure is bad for white. I mean, it's not good. This is a big weakness in many positions. If black can deal with, the light square bishop. You go back to this game, it's what they have. It's the same exact structure, which is what is fascinating. So you know from certain chess openings the way certain structures look. But in certain chess openings, the bishop is there and the bishop is there. That doesn't exist here. So Vincent immediately goes to attack Levon. I mean, look at this energetic chess. He doesn't even castle. Levon forces the king to move, but instead he wants to trade pieces. And now h6. The bishops are staring at each other. The queen is staring. The knight is under attack. Takes on f5. Takes on g5. Opening up the position. Rook to b7 defending himself. Oh my goodness. What would have been a little bit more energetic is even knight e6 to try to open it up like this. That would have been crazy. But rook b7 is played. Rook g1. Oh my god, he's bringing all the rooks. Castles. Yeah, because you could castle. He never castled. He could castle. And now, in this position, Vincent should just take the pawn. That's a mouse slip. He should just take the pawn and keep the attack going. We have fe, rook f8, king f8, and just keep trying to attack like this. But instead, Vincent plays e7. So Vincent gives up the pawn to try to bring the rook over here, which is what happens. Then he takes. Now f6, a well-timed move. Rook f5, the attack is still there. The knight is rotating backwards. Very complicated game. Bishop c3, trying to bring in the bishop. He takes, slides his king to safety, keeps, but now Levon might have more pawns on that board, on that side of the board, which are active. We have take. Rook g7 check, king h2, very complicated game. Oh my god, Levon's coming in with the attack now. Would have been apparently better to play king here first, defending himself. Instead, he opts for knight g5. Knight e4, oh, that's a really big problem. And now we're going to an endgame where probably only black can win. He brings the knight back. He brings back the knight. The queen is calling a lot of shots here. Bishop d2. Oh my goodness. He's hanging on by a thread, and now those pawns are moving, and now the only way you'll create counterplay is with the H-pawn. If he doesn't move the H-pawn, black is going to walk in. You are overwhelmed, so you got to go H4, H5, H6. That's the only way. Your queen protects, queen F5. Like, again, if in this position you played B4, AB, AB, H5, B3, guess what? That's a problem. This pawn is an issue because of H7. And, yeah, queen F5 instead. And in this position, the players just make a repetition of moves, and the first game ends in a draw. So we've had results all over the place. This one very complicated. You know, Keymer sacrificing a pawn early. Every game completely different flavor, different style. And that brings us to our last game of the day. All right, so let's compare the opening of every game thus far. This one was a pawn gambit. This one was like this, and this one was like this. What's going to happen in this one? Well, in this one, we have what could have happened in this game, Abdusattorov-Ding, but instead of committing a pawn, right, Magnus did this. And by the way, the best part is we have no idea if Magnus is right or not. For once we have a format, we have no idea if Magnus is good at this format or not. Like, we straight up don't know. And he has no reference. He has no historical, you know, base to look at. So we're going to see how Magnus does. Again, we see the same kind of concept. We see the same concept that Abdusattorov used, right? But in this game, it happens on H3. And Magnus spends 22 minutes on his next move, goes to the confession booth and says, this move is made out of desperation because I have a terrible position. After 2 moves, that might just be the way it works. I don't know. Sometimes in Fischer Random, going white is worse than going black. Sometimes going white is better than going going first is better. Playing white is better than playing black, or playing black is better than playing white. That sometimes it just, that's what it means. So knight e7, f4. A pawn attack, castles. Now he opens up this. Magnus plays knight g6, trying to defend himself, and we have the same structure. The same structure. Look at this. Like identical, basically, as we had in this game. But in that game, there was a pawn sacrifice by black. Well, in this game, there is no pawn sacrifice. We just have knight f4. And now Magnus plays queen e5. But black is behind white. Black is behind. So we have queen g3. And now I'm threatening to win the game with a discovered attack. Now, if knight f4 was played in this position, and like rook f4 and castles by black, then, you know, white would build up an initiative, probably play queen f2, knight b3, move the bishop, bring the rook. But instead of that, we go to an endgame. We go to an endgame. We have take, and Ali Reza basically says, you're the endgame god. Let me beat the endgame god. Plays rook b3. All right, it's going to put pressure here. Speaking of which, remember the Gukesh game? Remember how in the Gukesh game, that pawn was really weak? You notice how patterns just happen in these positions? Like, that's so wild to me. That, you know, on the first move, it's like, well, do I play b6? No. The players have determined it's probably better to play b5. And they're right. According to the computer, it's better to play b5. But then your a-pawn's weak. And we're seeing that. We're seeing literally the inner workings of these positions. Now you just have a weakness that you have to defend with your bishop. Then I come back. Who's going to guard that pawn? You're not going to go c6 because then you're going to kill your bishop. That's the best move according to the engine. But the engine doesn't know a damn thing about Fischer Random. Knight b3. And Ali Reza just has a menacing position. Look at what he's doing to the best endgame player in the world. He's literally just dancing around him and picking him apart. And there's nothing Magnus can do because this is Fischer Random. He has to lose his a-pawn. Magnus and Ding, the only people in the world that have a world championship. Well, Hikaru has the Fischer Random World Championship. He's not playing in this event. I don't even know why, by the way. Like, I was seeing mixed reports. He went on a recap. He said he wasn't playing, Wesley wasn't playing because of a lack, I don't know, it was like communications. But then I saw on social media that, and I saw on his stream as well, that he was invited, he just chose not to play. I don't know, because he has to prepare for the candidates. I don't know what's happening. I can't relay anything that I don't know. All I know is that Magnus is defending a pawn down endgame against Ali Reza Firouzja. And let me tell you something, this is not looking very good. Rook to e1, rook e8, and the question is, will the knight take the bishop and go to a rook endgame? And the answer is yes. Now, one thing Magnus will not do here is this. If you are defending a rook endgame, you do not want to end up with 1 rook each. Your only source of counterplay will come by keeping your rooks on the board. I tell you guys this every recap. Hopefully you're learning something. Rook e7, rook d2. And the way white is going to win this endgame is white is going to go for something like this. I'm not saying right away, but white will go for this. And this is completely winning. in a, with a king here, like provided there's no counterplay. If white gets the pawns moving, the game is over completely. Rook a2, that's it. You just, it's too many pawns. It's too many pawns. I don't care if you have 1 rook, 2 rook, 3 rook, 5 rook, 8 rooks. Doesn't matter. If I have 8 rooks, you have 8 rooks, you're going to lose. So that's the idea. So Alireza is just making preparations. Magnus knows his time is limited. He has to fight back. So d4, fine. That's another way to play, to try to play rook c5, right? Because Alireza is looking to simplify. Rook e1 check. Rook f1. The only way. This is the only way to play. Alireza messes up. Magnus here was trying to put the pawn here and mate the king. And maybe go rook a1 and maybe go rook a3. He's trying to defend this actively, right? Alireza's best option was to go here, apparently. And the point is that if black plays f5, you go for a rook trade. That's the point. If rook h1, king here, then, maybe rook e2, maybe Alireza probably wasn't comfortable giving up this, but apparently he can just walk his king and he's fine. Instead he plays rook c3, and now Magnus is back in the game. And in this position, the move g6, leaving this rank completely covered, is supposedly holding for black. You can lose this pawn because after rook e3, king h2, f4, white's king is stuck. Actually, black is winning. Can you believe that? So you can't take on c7. What you can do is offer a trade of rooks, f4, king f3, rook g1, and if white goes king g4, you can play here. And if there's a trade and I start eating your pawns, wait a minute, you can't take because rook takes g2. And this is crazy stuff. This is absolutely dank. This is ridiculous. And you know what you do in this position? You move your king because you can't take. What? So Magnus's drawing idea was to play g6. And if rook f2, he had to find this, oops, this, king g7, king f6, king h6, because of the mate. He's the best endgame player of all time, but that's crazy. And he plays the human move, which is trying to bring the king to join the pawns, but that gives Alireza time to go here, which is the same setup, and again, it's just a matter of time. f4, king f3, and remember previously, black has to avoid a trade of rooks, because that's the only way, but now king g4, And the difference between this king g4 and this king g4, rather, not this king g4, this king g4, the difference is position of the pawn, the position of the king, and those squares were cut off, but now they're not cut off. So because those squares are not cut off, you don't have any checkmating ideas. Do you understand the point? In this position, the pawns create a wall, and it's actually a mate, but there's no mate here. So you can't have that. Alireza is now 2 pawns up, and he's the best endgame player of all time, but the king escapes, which the king couldn't have done in the previous version of this because the pawn was on g6, which is crazy stuff. There was a mating idea defensively. Alireza's up 2 pawns. Alireza wins the game. Alireza just beat Magnus Carlsen for the first time in a classical chess game. Now, admittedly, we got this goofy setup. It's not real chess, but this event is blowing my mind because Alireza, the young guy, won. Nodirbek Abdusattorov is 6.5 out of 8, murdering people. And tomorrow, if Ding doesn't beat him, he's going to be undefeated. He's going to be in the semifinals. He hasn't lost the game. Was this the goal? Like, is the goal of events like this to level the playing field? Because I feel like we're going to make some very serious question marks about the top chess players in the world. Is Nodirbek the most talented chess player in the world? Like, I straight up have no idea. I have no idea what this means. Is this going to be as equally respected as a form of chess as regular chess, where there's no openings? Don't know. But Nodirbek wins, Fabiano wins, this one is a draw, and Magnus is on the ropes. Magnus has to beat Alireza tomorrow with white, so does Ding. Listen, I put more money on Magnus if I'm a betting man, because he's going to get the white pieces and he's in good form. Ding is half out of 7. I mean, half at 8. He's half out of 8. Oh my God. Oh my God. That's all I have for you today. I'll see you all tomorrow. Get out of here.